we're back, and we just finished watching 2019's JOJO Rabbit, directed by Taika Waititi, based on the novel Caging Skies. It tells the story of a little boy during the Second World War, kind of, I think, towards the end of it. They're now recruiting children into the armed forces, and the movie opens up where he's going, I guess, to this Hitler Youth weekend where...
It's supposed to be lots of fun.
And lots of training.
He's going to learn how to become a good little Nazi.
Okay,
exactly.
Don't spoil anything.
Oh.
No spoilers.
No
but,
spoilers.
That's the warning.
That's the beginning of the setup.
Yes. I guess since it is relatively new, we'll try to be spoiler free here. A lot of stuff happens in this film. The crux of the story is that JoJo's mother, Rosie, played by Scarlett Johansson, is hiding a little Jewish girl in their attic. Or in...
It's like, hey, no spoilers. By the way, here's like the source of the main drama. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's important to the story because...
It's in the description.
It's in the description, yeah.
Okay.
And he has a complete 180. His character.
Well, I think, yeah, the little boy JoJo, he is, he's being raised during Nazi times. It's everybody's
where Hitler was around.
Yes, when Hitler was around, and Hitler's got this cult of personality about him where everybody's just like, oh, Hitler's the best, Hitler's greatest.
Blindly following.
Let's make sure we say Heil Hitler really loud and whatnot, and there's posters of him everywhere, and JoJo is a young, very impressionable young boy to the point where he even has an imaginary friend, and that person is Hitler, played by Taika Waititi himself.
Hitler, Dad.
Yes.
As opposed to George Hitler. Yes, Adolf Hitler. Hope I didn't confuse anybody out there, but yes.
What other Hitler was there during World War II?
Yeah,
So
and I doubt that's a really popular
Just
last
regular
name.
It's not like Jones. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. He's like so enveloped in this whole Nazi thing that his imaginary friend is Hitler, played by Taika Waititi. A rather goofy version of Hitler.
Although when he would get into his manic phases, it got a little intense.
There was a little bit of intensity when you could see when JoJo was, I guess, sort of having his or feeling feelings that wouldn't fit into the Nazi narrative. That Hitler would reappear and try and get him back on track with one of Hitler's arm-waving crazy speeches.
Right. So what did you think of the movie, G?
I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part? I don't know. I laughed a lot. I laughed at some inappropriate times, too.
That's fine. That's the whole point of comedy. I think this is a comedy. There are some
There's a comedy
intense scenes.
Yeah,
there was one scene where I literally was like, "Oh no."
Me too. That was my
scene
scene.
that'll kind of make you gasp. And that's pretty.
Well, actually, there was two scenes that were, and they're kind of interwoven. So yeah, that whole segment. There's one scene that was just high anxiety the whole time I'm watching it because you just don't know what's going to happen at the end.
It seemed
there was
like
a nerve-wracking scene.
Forever,
yes,
but it was only like 15 minutes when I checked the time.
Yeah, but it was nerve-wracking to say the least.
There was definitely a nerve-wracking scene, and soon after is sort of like a heartbreaking scene.
Yes.
Yeah, that's my least favorite.
That was my least favorite scene too.
I don't think I have a favorite scene. I like all of it.
Yeah,
most of it.
It was really well done. I didn't expect to like this as much as I thought I do. I think it's interesting that in the beginning it's all the propaganda, I guess, footage. It looked very much like all that Lenny Riefenstahl stuff that got filmed in the beginning of he's coming off the plane and people are waving the little Nazi flags, and it's almost like
they used a lot of and like they they showed that in line with like basically they were making that alongside the Beatles,
Right,
and
which was
like,
hilarious.
It was funny and it fit because there's literally footage in black and white of like women screaming and waving their hands and stuff like that,
losing their
and
minds.
that sort of reinforces that whole this guy back then
Was like a rock star.
had like this massive cult following where people would just it's like, hey, that I'm what this guy says, yeah, what this guy says, and I'm gonna follow it whether I know it's right or wrong.
It's funny. We just watched it on HBO, and it's funny because as I'm watching it, I'm cringing on the inside because this is the world that we're living in.
Yes.
There is so much in this movie that is obviously satire, but really holds a mirror up to society. If you haven't seen this movie, I highly, highly encourage you to see it. I'm going to go on the record and say this is a 9. The script is tight. All the acting in it. I'll out myself. I'm not a big fan of Scarlett Johansson, but she really made me care for her in this movie.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
She had such a lovely, nuanced performance that you don't really get to see her do a lot, I think. I mean, she mostly comes across as this badass. We're more apt to see her as like a Black Widow character or some other character, but she's never like this mothering, vulnerable woman. And she does this in spades. And it was lovely to look at. It was lovely to listen to. And at times it was heartbreaking. The little boy, Roman Griffith Davis, I think is his name. Outstanding. Yeah. Outstanding.
Great job for
a little kid actor. Yeah. Absolutely. Really impressed. Really, really impressed with him. Olive, what did you think of the movie? And please be honest.
It was terrible.
Why do you think it was terrible?
I don't like it.
Why didn't you like it? Tell me.
Because they killed a rabbit.
Because they killed a rabbit.
Yeah,
there was a scene at the beginning.
Dies in the very beginning.
But it wasn't a real rabbit. No animals were harmed in the making of this film.
Yeah,
so
they'd go to jail if they did that.
But it was important to the story because you had to highlight the cruelty of some people, and it was an important setup for the story. Again, no animals were harmed in the making of this film. I doubt Taika Waititi would sign on to do something like that. And plus, when you see it looked like a puppet, right?
It was.
It wasn't.
Basically, it could have been a throw pillow. You know, whenever they show like rabbits and stuff in movies. It's basically just a sandbag with fur on it.
Yeah,
you know?
It wasn't a rabbit.
Not a real bunny.
Yeah.
But I mean, the guy who did it,
he
got on a truck and went back, and when the truck came back, he wasn't on the truck anymore.
Right. So.
And the guys that were didn't look like they were in the best shape.
Exactly. What did you think?
I thought it was great. I mean, like it's great when a movie could take you on that sort of like emotional roller coaster sort of thing where you're laughing in 1 minute, you're concerned in another, you're anxious, you're really sad, your heart's broken, and everybody did such a good job, and they were, especially that little kid. That little kid did a fantastic job of having such a great arc. And being where he was in the beginning of the film to being where he was at the end, learning a life lesson. Everybody else was great. I mean, Sam Rockwell was great. He was like this a Nazi lieutenant or whatever who knew. He from the get go when he's like the head of the kids camp. He's pretty much checked out at that point. He knows that this war is lost. He even sort of mutters it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And now he's like, because he's wounded, one of his eyes is whited out. It's like, it doesn't work anymore. So he's basically left in this town that JoJo lives in, and he's pretty much in charge of the Hitler Scouts, or whatever they're called.
Hitler Scouts.
And then after certain events happen, he's sort of even demoted beyond that, where he's just sort of like, okay, you're just going to hang out in this convalescent home now for wounded German soldiers.
Yeah.
And he's, at that point, he's absolutely checked out. He's just like drinking on the job.
Yeah.
And drawing costumes for himself.
Yes. That was amazing. That was amazing.
And his assistant, Alfie Allen, who's just a blithering idiot.
And I got the impression that there was something there. I don't know if that's true to the novel, but it seemed like there was something between Finkel and Captain Glenzendorf.
Yeah, there was Captain K. Yeah.
Captain K, that's right.
There was a moment where they looked at each other and you were like, oh, something's going on there.
And I'm okay with that. I am okay with that.
And what's her name?
Rebel Wilson.
Rebel Wilson is just a monster. A goofy monster, but then at the end, she's just like doing the most horrible things. And it's, yeah,
I laughed in one of the scenes where she was doing something horrible.
Yeah. That was just ridiculous.
Yes,
I
yes.
think I know what you're talking about, and that was absolutely ridiculous.
Sorry, it was horrible.
And JoJo had this adorable little friend who
Yorkie.
apparently cannot die.
Yes. Played by Archie Yates, who he too was great. It was so funny. At one point, I turned to you and I was like, "He's like little Nick Frost
Like
to me."
Nick Frost.
I love it.
And everybody just put together this great performance, and like I said, like with Sam Rockwell, there's a scene, the scene where everything gets really anxious.
Yes.
And for some reason, Sam Rockwell appears in the scene, and I think it was related to what happens afterwards.
Afterwards, yeah.
But you could tell that there's more to his character than
meets the eye.
And it's just great. Everybody's just good. I mean, you never... Oh, they're Nazis, but... you can't like the Nazis, but you'll like Sam Rockwell.
Well, yes. This was such a great movie. I'm actually interested now in reading the book. Kudos to Taika Waititi for bringing this to the screen and just doing a fantastic job. It was just from start to finish. Like I said, like the beginning, I think they used like those reels that Lenny Riefenstahl like filmed during all those rallies and stuff.
And propaganda films. And
it's very funny because it really plays to a lot of what's going on today.
It's reflective of today's society where
people get swept up in a movement.
People get swept up
and are hardcore zealots in their belief.
They become so
indoctrinated
in a specific personality.
Yes.
That they are willing to just sort of look over just absolutely horrid behavior.
Not to go off on a tangent, but and I won't go on it too much. There was a really excellent piece of journalism in Politico about Stephen Miller, who is not a nice person. They were saying how other people had influenced him, and one of the persons that influenced him basically said something that you and I have talked about, how in order to rally the masses, you have to appeal to their hope or their fear. The Obama presidency was all about change and hope and this, that, and the other thing. When our current president came about, he did a lot of fear-mongering. He appealed to people's fear and hate and ignorance. And unfortunately, in 4 years, we have gone down a horrible downward spiral. It is unfortunate. But at the end of the day, you have to have hope. So here's to hoping to better days. Here's to hoping to never repeating past mistakes. Here's to hoping that we can all dance together.
Mm-hmm.
A scale of 1 to 10, G. What do you give this movie?
I think I'd give it a 7.95.
7.95.
I'm giving this thing a 9. This
Yeah,
was
I
a
would give
really
it.
good movie.
This was a really, really good movie. When you mix social commentary and satire and drama, it's. I mean, this could have gone either way, but I think. Again, I mean, we've talked about what a stellar storyteller Taika Waititi is. So,
and yeah, that's
is-
like one of the things that like the scene, like we talked about, the heartbreaking scene, the way he
Handled
shows
it.
that, the way he handled that was perfect.
yes,
It was not gratuitous. It was just
it was a gut punch.
something
but
was happening, and then you're just like. And you're like, what?
What?
Whoa, what?
yeah,
And
What the hell happened?
yes,
you literally gasp. And
Yeah.
that is the sign of an excellent filmmaker, excellent storyteller.
yes. When you're so engrossed in the story,
You're so engrossed in the story
That-
and just using the tools that you have to show something that anybody else could have handled in the like just a ham-fisted or
ways.
terrible way.
yeah.
And you're especially when you're dealing with like children and whatnot. I mean, yeah, that was
And I
so beautifully handled. It was a heartbreaking moment, and it was just great. He is like you think. Oh, he's a comedy director,
And he
what
is.
What we
He
do in the
is.
shadows
Those
and
Ragnarok.
and Thor Ragnarok, but you're like, oh god, this was phenomenal. He did a fantastic job. This was-
Absolutely. And I mean, you have to give him credit to marry those elements and to tell such a beautiful, poignant story, and to make social commentary that isn't, like you said, gratuitous or egregious. It doesn't
or preachy.
Yeah,
just
it was just telling you a lovely story.
yeah.
And I absolutely adore him as a filmmaker. I absolutely adore him as a storyteller. And I love that he ended with German Heroes by David Bowie. I love that. I love that so very much. So thank you, Taika, for bringing Jojo Rabbit to the screen. Littlest Girl, 1 to 10.
5.
5. Well,
Oh, that was better than I thought.
Lastly, 3.
no way. Get out of here.
No.
You
We're
can't change.
we're taking your first.
Yeah, we're taking your first because
Yeah.
it's not a 3. But what do you say, husband? 12 and up, maybe 10 and up. I mean, there are dark elements to
There
this
are
movie.
dark elements to this. Like I said, it's not. But
I
it's
bet
not.
the IMDb parents
It's not
guide has
gratuitous.
something to say
Oh my
about it.
God, I should check
It's
that.
not gratuitous, but I mean,
We are talking about
as you
World
can hear,
War
as you
II.
can hear from Olive there. When I was a little kid, I remember watching some film about like the Titanic going down, and people are screaming, dying everywhere, and I was just staring at the screen like whatever. And then I saw a puppy, and I knew the puppy was going to die, and that ruined it for me. So, little kids, a little kid might be really turned off by the fact that in the beginning a rabbit does get killed.
There are 4 instances of sex and nudity, according to
all which
IMDb.
none of them should be sex and nudity.
Sex and I don't recall anything sexual in this movie
At all.
at all.
Ready?
Yeah, okay.
Number 1. When Didnt, the Stephen Merchant character, is inspecting JoJo's house, he mentions Hitler having 4 testicles.
Oh
Is that sex or nudity?
no, it's
They're
not.
talking. Number 2, there is talk of people having sex with animals. I don't remember that. Where was that?
I think when they were talking about like what did Jewish people do
Yeah,
or
okay.
something like that.
Number 3, Kleinsendorf and Finkel have a moment where they lock eyes. It appears as if they are possible lovers. Captain K then shows JoJo a uniform that is rainbow colored with feathers. Number 4, a 20 to 30 second conversation of penises takes place, of eating them and using them as earplugs and such. Supposed to be comedic, but also a bit inappropriate for young viewers.
Yeah, that was a funny scene.
I don't know. I mean, parents, use your judgment. It is
Yeah.
a lovely story. It might be a little frightening if you are not, if your kids aren't used to this sort of thing, then err on the side of caution. If you are a little bit more lax, or if you have older children, I think this is a fantastic piece for them to look at. And again, have these conversations about idolatry and
beware fanaticism, beware cults of personality, beware anybody who says that they are
the second coming,
the be all end all and the solution to all your problems, because they're not.
Chances are they're not. Exactly.
They're a load of crap.
And a lot of fear mongering. I mean, the stuff that they were saying about Jewish people in this was beyond the pale. I'm grateful that, I mean, I know in other instances with movies, people of certain ethnicities get upset. I didn't hear much of a furor from the Jewish community about this movie, so.
They were. I mean, in this case, they're talking about the type of propaganda that the Nazis would spread, and you can't. I mean, one, it's amazing that Taika Waititi got to go to a studio and basically say, like, I'm going to make a comedy where I play Hitler and it's about Nazis and whatnot.
Yeah, how did that get pitched?
He got it made, but when you do something like that,
it's very thought out.
You make the Nazis buffoonish, obviously, and you also demonstrate the horrible stuff they did. You can't really make a film where Nazis are sort of like, you know, hey, we're good guys. You know, we don't believe any of that propaganda about Jews. No, they believe it, and they're going to spread it, and it's there so you could see as a rational human being that it's just complete lunacy and just deranged talk of people who basically want to drum up fear, hatred, and ignorance. And
another thing, and I mean, I feel like this isn't a spoiler. I mean, I think we all know how this war ended. So just to kind of go to right before where the American troops come, I think that is a powerful sequence when JoJo sees the death and destruction, how these innocent people, these men, these women, these children have been sort of sacrificed. There's little girls that can't even hold a rifle.
Yeah, struggling
to hold a rifle, you know, and just dead
grandmothers, shouldering rocket launchers, and
right,
even the wounded soldiers from the home that had missing arms and legs were running out there and fighting this fight for this guy who had at this point had already put a bullet in his head. At that point, he had already killed himself.
Right. So, but they were still holding on to their fear and ignorance. Yeah, I mean, it's powerful stuff. I mean, this is another reason why I love movies so much. I love discussing them. I love watching them. I hate this virus, but I'm enjoying this extra time doing this with you kids and your dad. It is late. I guess we should bid you all adieu so these children can go to bed.
No!
All right, night.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh my